Good day, everybody. So, my name is Gabriel Gutierrez, and I'm going to be presenting a panel that's quite important for me, and hopefully, it'll be important and constructive for you as well. Pressing continue like that, hopefully. Um, we're going to talk about mental empowerment for developers and designers. The industry is fragmented in many ways, other than the amount of money that it's making. And there are a lot of us who have really paid a price um, in the name of those profits. Our mental health, our mental well-being, our own desire to go to work each day, whether it's remote or in person, to be able to have the energy to look at the other person who who may not be making you feel very well, or maybe that person is yourself, and you're just filled with self-doubt. We need to take that step back now. This is going to be that step back, I hope. um we get into the arts because we for many of us, it's what we believe in. This is the only thing we have, and we put all of our heart into this, and yet sometimes it feels like it's not enough. So what do we do? How do we speak out when more often than not we're speaking out through our creative skill set, our creativity, our art, our sound, our narrative design, even our coding. A lot of people speak through their coding, how they want certain things to happen, you know. So what do we do? Let's talk about it. But first and foremost, my nerdy credentials, if you will. I come from Puerto Rico, raised in New Jersey, and but also my lineage goes all the way back to Castilian Spain, and I'm also certified in both peer and trauma support with direct lived experience. I'm also an advocate for youth, adult, and family domestic violence and sexual abuse. I'm a massive, massive advocate for that. I'm also a re-emerging game developer, indie game developer, and designer, where it's personal now. The stories I used to tell when I first started back in January 2012 was more about, having fun, telling good stories, but more on an entertainment side. But now, after going through my own personal experiences and finding myself more often than not feeling unheard and not being taken seriously, now it's personal on top of everything else. And I'm going to tell you, first and foremost, that's a hard thing to do. But you get through those barriers, your conviction, the level of conviction you attain from that, you're unstoppable. Now, with that, I'm leading the charge, adding, endurance, resilience, mental empowerment, to do my part in uniting all the voices of the arts and and turning that into the interactive arts: game development, game design, storytelling, poetry, music, film, and much, much more. That's who I am, and I'm much more than that. Now, who I'm not my mental illness. I was initially diagnosed with codependency and depression, but no longer. And I'm not a victim. Better believe I'm not a victim. I'm never going to accept that Aerith is gone. And I'm never going to stop wondering if Nintendo is ever really going to make a new Super Mario, not Super Mario, listen to me, a Super Princess Peach game where she now saves Mario, with Luigi and Yoshi's help. So, and yes, I said Mario. Should be Mario. Tomato, tomato. My as you can see from my nerd credentials, founder of Nascent Games. That was the name of my previous indie studio, and I ran that for close to set for just over almost 8 years. Wow, I didn't even realize how long that has been. 8 years. With one release game called Crumple, Episode One, released in November 2017, which, as of this recording, almost 5 years. Episode Two is in the works. Slowly. I rebranded Nascent Games into November Rain in January of 2020, just before COVID. Lucky me. And now working on the episode two for Crumple, two unannounced and two other, I should say three unannounced projects at this point. I am the founder of Above the Flaw. Above the Flaw is a podcast that I've been doing for about a year and a half now, where we focus on the mental empowerment in the arts. And we get to speak out and speak back against the difficulties that the industry, the people representing those industries, have caused in the name of not righteousness, but just being right. I was the chapter head of the IGDA Sacramento chapter for about 5 years and successfully transitioned it into Sacramento Developer Collective, just independent based, no more ties to the IGDA, and knock on wood, still up and running today. But I passed that torch as well, and that was the goal, to pass that torch. During that time, I also founded the Sacramento Indie Arcade, ran that for about 5 years, and to celebrate indie gaming development both locally, regionally, and beyond. Founded Stand as One, which is a spoken word radio and open mic show. Still doing that today. I am an author of 4 self-published poetry books, and my top 3 games. One of the biggest questions, the $1 million question, some would argue. My top 3 games of all time: Journey, Chrono Trigger, and I put Earth Defense Force 5, which is a specific game that saved my life, but really the Earth Defense Force series, I should say. My experience in game development and design is as a world builder, story narrative designer, level designer, and sound designer, and of course, overall creative direction. Today, we're going to talk about 3 different stages of our empowerment. How do we tackle that? First stage is going to be just don't select go at it alone. We can't do this alone anymore. We need each other more than ever before. The next level is we're going to talk about, if it's only overwhelming if you allow it, aka the difficulty of things. And then the final stage will be, did you press pause to breathe? We're going to talk about that. So with level 1, stage 1, not selecting to go at it alone, resilience does not only come from doing it ourselves, but also from resolving it together. We have been told more often than not that if you don't get this done by yourself, there's no point. We have hit a situation more often than not that it's about the competitive nature of things. We see it often on social media. We see it often in different industries, but what about the cooperative nature of it all? The problem that's happened with the mixed messaging has been, if you do too much of one, you're a bad person, but if you do too much of the other, you're also a bad person. And what do you do? How do you tackle that? We just want to make stuff. We just want to create whatever that might be. But but more often than not, we don't know where to begin, because we're hearing so many different sides of it. And while that's important to have a good broad understanding of each of these different things out there, there has to be a point that you hit that, you just kind of set that boundary for yourself. It's like, okay, that's it. No more of this, no more of this. And and then at that point, it becomes, who do I talk to? Who do I talk to get some guidance? And the thing about this is, And this is really important. It's we want to find the people, so let's say we come up with an idea and we want to find the people who will validate our idea, who will say, oh my god, that's a great idea, you think you should run with that. We naturally have that tendency to gravitate towards those kinds of perspectives, those kinds of people. But I'm going to tell you that find those who don't always, who don't always agree or don't always understand, but in a constructive way. As long as they're being constructive with why they think something might be amiss, or maybe you could try a different angle. Part of the issue that we see today, in that we're told, is humanity is defined and friendship is defined by those who just agree with you. And I'm going to tell you, no, that is extremely unhealthy, because you will only ever see and hear one side of it. And sometimes you're only going to hear it because, who you hear it from is only saying it to please you. And you, more often than not, you don't know any better because you're emotionally charged. We as creatives are emotionally charged, that the emotions drive us to create these things. So the last thing we really want to hear is someone who says, well, and just the moment we hear a hint of that, you were like, what? How dare you? No, no. It's important and it's very healthy. Again, there is a boundary, and it takes practice to establish and more so exercise that boundary. Put that boundary into practice to say, well, okay, you're going a little too far now. You're being a little over, aggressive, whatever the situation may be. You know, but the important thing is to learn from different sides of the coin. Okay? Because a coin is not valuable because it has one side. It's because it has two, right? So be that coin. Put value in your work by understanding both sides of it. Okay? And you never know, an opportunity can come from those discussions, from those perspectives, to where you can say, you know what, I think I might need your help, because I want to understand this more. Because at the end of the day, it's not so much about who agrees with who, it's about respecting one another's path and how they want to develop themselves. you know learning and practicing how to stay in each other's lane, but also, waving for help when we need help, but also, when we hear that signal for help, we don't diminish that person, we don't disrespect that person, because we're all going through something, and no one's issues, whether it be, just personal, deeply personal, traumatic, no one's issues are better or worse than the other. There is not an award show for this sort of thing, and there shouldn't be. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Next. And we just kind of talked about this, being cooperative in your craft, understanding your strengths, but also understanding your limits. Communicate what you can do, but more importantly, what you cannot do. What you cannot do is one of the biggest things we as creatives fail to express. We want to be able to tackle it all. We want to be able to tackle everything. This is our heart. Our heart is invested in this. But you must be careful in how you overextend yourself. Have to be careful with that. And you have to be able to not just come to terms with that yourself, understanding your limitations, because understanding your limitations is a strength in of yourself, whether you realize that or not. The kind of strength it takes to identify how far you can go, what you are capable of, that's huge. That's huge. Many people dive way too hard and become so consumed by trying to just do everything, and we lose our way. Not healthy. Not healthy at all. So that's why those boundaries are important for both yourself and your team. Okay? Very, very important. because especially if you're working for a team, because your team needs to understand how you're doing, and you need to be able to understand theirs as well. And that alignment is so important. So, and that's why I go back to what I said earlier. It's not about the agreement with each other, it's the alignment with one another and getting it done. Next stage. It's only overwhelming if you allow it. Now, that applies most of the time. There are times where it is outside of our control. But what we do from that is what makes the difference in us, is what defines us. Walls are meant to climb, they are not meant to confine. Walls are different than boundaries. Let me make that, let me say that again. Okay. Walls are different than boundaries. They're not the same. They're not the same. Setting boundaries allows more creative freedoms in a cooperative way. But just putting walls up, you're just shutting everyone down. You're shutting everyone away, including yourself. And you become consumed by that, as I talked about a few moments ago. Not healthy. Not healthy at all. So, because at this point, you become, we are one of two people. We are our own best friend or our own worst enemy. You have to pick one. You want to be, some days gonna lean on both a little bit, but it really begins with changing your dialect. Instead of, oh, I can't do this today, you know which is okay sometimes. That's a boundary. But understanding and telling and committing to coming back, to continue where you left off, instead of, just, I'm just running away for good. I'm going to run forward, I'm going to run toward. Okay. And when you declare that, own it. And if people, you try to declare that on social media, which I don't think you really should do. Like, you can if you want to, but all you don't need to declare things on social media to put value in yourself. You don't need to declare it on blogs to put value in that. You don't need to do any of that. It's not a necessity. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying it's not a necessity. You don't need it. We've been convinced that we need to put every drop of ourselves on the internet. And I'm telling you, please don't do that. You don't need to. Not everybody, not everybody is obligated to every piece of you like that. Not in that realm and scope of things. Because you set a certain level of expectation. You may not realize you set that level of expectation, and others are like, well, you said this the other day. That's not healthy. And then you end up either running from that really tense situation, trying, or you end up getting tense from trying to explain yourself on this thing you were feeling, and now you're not feeling this way. You don't owe it to anybody but you. But you. Okay? So know your worth. You know, as it's the old quote says, those who mind don't matter, those who matter don't mind. There's a reason that thing exists. Stage 3. Did you pause to breathe? It only takes a candle to quell the darkness. Breathing is that candle. Breathing allows to reignite that candle. We are finished. We have had I'm done with today. And it is only morning. I'm done with today. Why did I wake up? I get it. I get it. I understand. You have to remember why you're doing what you chose to do. The why is the most important. It's not to diminish the others, the what are you doing, the how you got started, where you've gone since. It's why you're doing it. And that's a question we find ourselves not asking. We're not asking that question very often. The why seems to be a very uncomfortable question for many people. And I'm telling you, that's not okay. Not okay. You have to ask yourselves, why are we doing this? What got us here, but why are we doing it? Okay. But in order to do that, we got to stop and breathe. We have to pause and breathe. And sometimes just look at a candle, listen to the sounds outside, go, taking a walk by, in a park by a lake or something like that. I love the water. I'm a fire sign, but I love the water. So it's really important to stop and take in the sounds you wouldn't normally hear, because we're just go, 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 because our brains are always, always, always going. Okay. It actually helps when we sleep or when we try to sleep. Because isn't it frustrating sometimes when we're going to sleep and this wacky idea starts coming out? We're like, oh my God, that's fantastic. And now we've lost an hour, two, maybe three, of sleep because we, this crazy awesome thing just came up, and but it took us being half asleep to get there. You know, that it's great sometimes when that happens. Uh the universe knows that's happened to me a lot. It's, you know, but it's that, but that that balance, that mental balance in yourself is finding that is important. That's why being able to pause during the day, during a moment in your day, or unless, or at night, if you're a night crawler, you work better at night, whichever, however you roll, you know knowing when to stop and just taking in the silence a little bit. Getting up and walking is super important too. Okay. And because it comes to this, whether I am still or I'm in motion, I'm gonna get it done. It's about that line of being on a momentum, which we love. We creatives love that, especially when we've had a hard time hitting that momentum, and now we're like, oh my God, look at all these things I just got done today. I am incredible. I am awesome. I remember why I'm doing this. But then we forget to stop, and 12 hours have gone by. And it's nighttime, and we haven't gone to the restroom, and we haven't had food and or coffee or talked to any of our important people in our lives. Yeah. So yeah, it happens. And these things that I share with you, it's not to prevent it 100%. It's really to minimize it. If you do prevent it 100%, wonderful. But we're human beings at the end of the day, and it's not about knocking ourselves down when it happens. It's how we pick ourselves up. As I tell my 4-year-old son, it's not a mistake if you fix it. And it's not. If you fix it, it's not a mistake, and you learn from that, right? So that self-awareness should always be that skill set for you, and that's a daily practice. Self-awareness is a daily practice. In fact, I would even say hourly practice. Be the oxygen mask in the airplane for yourself. There's a reason they tell you to put the oxygen mask on yourself first, so you can then help others. Pay close attention to the needs of your team. Help where you can, but find help where you can't. Okay. That is important. If you don't know what to do, find a way, get some help. Okay. Now, let's say, well, I'm talking to my lead, or I'm talking to one of my coworkers, and I'm not getting the help that they need. They don't want to talk to me right now. They're busy doing this other thing. Try in a little while. It's just like a game. It's just like playing a game. You're stuck on a section of this level. I don't know what to do. Sometimes taking the step back, and the universe knows I have done this a bunch of times myself, where I've played this awesome game, and I've hit this stride, and then I get stuck in this area, and I just kind of like rage a little bit, like, I can't believe I can't figure this out. And I leave it alone for 2 months, and then I play it again, and I get through it as if I was never stuck to begin with. And I'm like, what just happened? What actually stopped me? Now, obviously, you don't wait 2 months when you're talking with your team, but the point is that, you know, goes back to that pause. pause and say, I'm gonna come back to you, but I'm gonna ask you again because we got to get stuff done. Okay. So, because what you do or don't do is will impact both you and your team. Remember, ask for that assistance, ask for that help if you need it. You are only a human being. You cannot and should not do it all. I mean, if you do again, great. But if you do, I would deeply, highly recommend sharing the wealth of knowledge and wisdom with others. Don't keep that to yourself. So remember, stop when you need to, push forward as you intended to. You know, we as creatives, we've got things to say, we've got things to share for both ourselves and our fans. We owe that to ourselves. So as we approach the tail end of this, it's all about that, continuation of things. I will continue. So this is something that I abide by on a daily basis as best as I can. I don't always get it right, but I don't give up either. Who I am matters, who I help matters more. How I care for myself matters the most. I will seek to connect with those who will read beyond my table of contents. What does that part mean? Getting to know me beyond the surface. Learn from others and share with others why we're doing what we're doing. We don't and it's not to say we have to tell our whole personal life story. We don't have to do that. It's not a requirement. But if the connection allows it, if that genuine connection allows it, go for it. Don't hesitate. Okay, because we need that connection more than ever. Connection is the most important thing. That is the main ingredient to everything else that I've been talking about today, right? And at the end, we hear, I will accept the things that I cannot change. I don't entirely agree with that. For me, it's I will accept what is beyond my control, but I'm going to change what I no longer accept. That is how we take a stand. That is one of the ultimate boundaries that we set for ourselves in everything we do, our personal lives, our craft, and our overall humanity. Because I'm going to say this now, you are not your brand. I'm going to say that again. You are not your brand. You are a human being. Your product, whether you're running a team, your own studio, or working with others in another studio, that product is your brand, your portfolio. You are not your brand. You are a human being capable of anything you would like to apply yourself to. But again, it's you are not your brand. Okay. There's so many ways I can go with that, but you're not your brand. All right. So, because even if you take that part away, you're capable of anything else, again, that you apply yourself to. Iron Man said that to Spider-Man in Spider-Man Homecoming, I think it was. Spider-Man had said, well, without this suit, what am I? And he and Iron Man just flat out said to him, if you think you need that suit to be you, you're missing the entire point. He said something along those lines, and I'm sure he said it way better than I ever could. But the point is that's a perfect example of that exact thing. You take these things away from you, you're still you at the end of the day. And you now have space to do something more to keep defining you. Okay? I hope that makes sense. So, thank you everybody for being a part of this today. I hope I didn't bore you. I hope what I shared here today is constructive, is helpful in some way. But this is how, if let me know what you think. Would love to know what you think. Um, my website, November Rain, novrain.art, and my podcast called Above the Flaw. You can find it on Podbean. It's just a little thing I do. It's not a thing I do for money. I don't make money off this sort of thing. But it's something that's really important for me. I prefer the connection than anything else.